Cage fighting connoisseurs, what a night. This is Kid Nate of BloodyElbow.com and Zane Simon, and the world has come crashing down. Ronda Rousey has been defeated. Holly Holm knocked her out, second round KO, 59 seconds in. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Man,
Zane, talk.
I can't. I am just. I gotta process this for a while. This is one of those things. Like, I get it. There are people out there going, "Ah, I saw it coming. I knew it. Y'all are chumps and believing in Ronda. She's trash, and she's always been trash." And it's like, come on, man. Y- This is huge. And one of the great things about being all in on somebody winning is that great sense of shock you get when they lose.
Yeah,
Like,
I gotta say, I had a feeling yesterday at the weigh-ins. Rogan was talking about it, with Rousey being the aggressor, and in the first round, it was clear pretty quickly that Rousey was in deep trouble.
yeah, I mean, by the end of that round, it was pretty obvious that things were going bad.
Yeah,
That
the
the
first time
momentum
she
was
clinched
gone.
and she got shrugged off. Okay, that was one thing. She's starting to get lit up. The second time, when she gets her down, she moves in for the armbar and doesn't get it. At that point, I was like, "Oh my God, we're gonna have an upset."
Yeah, I mean, just by the end of that round, she looked like she didn't have anything left. Like, she just dumped all of her adrenaline in that first round, gotten beat up too much, and oh shit! Like, I'm just still, you know, I
It,
I, I wouldn't trade being shocked like this for anything. That's the
No, no, it's awesome. It's why we have these sporting engagements, because we don't know what's going to happen. You've got two skilled athletes. You've got radically different skill sets. Rousey, of course, comes from an Olympic judo background. Holm, a professional boxer who's added a lot of kickboxing to her arsenal. Now, the knock on Holm was that she didn't have the power to get a finish, and the only way she would be able to beat Rousey would be to dominate her for 5 full rounds, which seemed impossible. It wasn't. It wasn't
Yeah,
at
I mean,
all.
it just so much of it's how quickly Ronda got seemed to get tired when things stopped going her way. It just like she has to put so much aggression into her game that when it didn't happen, it just was like,
It
you
was
know, it,
Brock Lesnar-esque is what it was.
yeah,
She wasn't flinching away from punches. I'll give her that.
no,
But it reminded me of the fight with Velasquez when Brock Lesnar came out charging Velasquez, the much smaller fighter, roaring into him, kneeing him to the body, trying to get the takedown, getting pushed off, and realizing I can't beat this guy. And I've given him everything I got. I shot my wad. I'm done. And that's a bad spot to be in when you're in there with a professional fighter that can fuck you up. And Holly Holm did. Once she started teeing off with the straight left, and Rousey was bloodied. It's just a matter of time from there.
yeah. I mean, the way that Rousey, like, as her game broke down, just every time she tried to step into the pocket, it was both arms out, head on line, chin in the air. And once Holm felt like she was comfortable enough to just start firing punches every time Rousey walked in like that, it was bad news.
Yep, yep, very bad news. And she
Oh
slipped a
man,
brutal, brutal head kick in there that dropped Rousey. Like Bigfoot Silva getting hit by Mark Hunt. I mean, it was like, actually, it was more like Anthony Peroche getting knocked out by John Vellante earlier in the night. I mean, it was one of those concrete bag falling from a second story window kind of drops, and
yeah,
Rousey was out. MMA Fighting's Esther Lynn, our colleague, got a incredible photo of the moment of the kick. That you got to go to MMA Fighting or Bloody Elbow and see it, because it's just captures the moment perfectly. Rousey got caught right to the jaw, just brutal violence. And the thing is, Rousey's only been out of the first round once against Tate,
yeah, I think so. I think
and
that's it.
Tate is a good wrestler and a dangerous fighter, but she doesn't have an instant kill shot kind of weapon. So Rousey's never been in there with somebody like Holm. I've said this many, many times, but women's MMA is very much where men's MMA was 10 or 15 years ago. And this reminded me so much of Mark Coleman
Yeah,
losing to Maurice Smith or Pete Williams, where the dominant wrestler would come in aggressive, get the takedown, beat people up on the ground, or get a submission. And they ran into these kickboxers who had studied enough grappling to be able to defend themselves. And at that point you're a non-professional kickboxer in the cage with a professional kickboxer, and that is a bad, bad place to be.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, it really did have a feeling of a little bit of the feeling of that Mark Coleman, Maurice Smith kind of thing, or Pete Williams, just where he was, just flailing at the end. And even if it didn't look like, even if it felt like he wasn't getting hit that often, it was just like every hit, every strike was just a crushing blow. And
Yeah.
that was this too. It's just like even if she's not just absolutely getting blitzed, it's just every time is not working.
No, no. And Holm got to a point where she was connecting with virtually everything and connecting stiffly. And Rousey had nothing. I mean, her
Yeah.
striking game's been pretty rudimentary from the get-go. Even when she's knocked people out, it's been in wild brawls. It hasn't been in, technical kickboxing phases of the game. I mean, she's basically used her judo to throw people around, and when she hasn't had to, like against Sarah McMahon or Betch Kahea, she was able to clinch with McMahon and knee her to the body and knock her out, and with Kahea, just steamrolled her. Now,
Yeah.
Holm is going to be. This is very interesting. I mean, where do we go from here? Obviously, an instant rematch is the big money fight, but is
Yeah.
Rousey even going to want to do that?
I think she'll want to do it. I cannot see her walking away from this right now. The big question to me is just, will she change camps to do it?
Yeah, that's a good question because this clearly needs a plan B.
Yeah. She
And
just, I mean, this is like, I can't, this is the moment where I think, I don't think this damages Ronda Rousey's star. I mean, the fact that she just looked pretty bad by the end of it may damage it more than anything. But the rematch is going to be huge.
yeah,
Like,
the
it
rematch
will
will be a
be
big fight. Holly
absolutely.
Holm is suddenly a superstar. I mean, a lot of people watched this fight. Holly Holm looked good. Holly Holm has not looked very good in the rest of her UFC career. In fact, the word was they rushed her into this fight because she looked so soft in her, 3 UFC fights before this? I
I
mean,
think
she was
too.
two. She was barely getting past people that she was supposed to be knocking out. And they wanted to keep her undefeated. They wanted to get her in there with Rousey. They knew it was going to be a big fight. Sure enough, it was. Holly Holm really came through. But now suddenly the division is very competitive because there's a lot of women out there that I think can give Holly Holm a fight that we didn't give a chance against Ronda Rousey. And Chris Cyborg is still out there. This is a bad, bad night for Chris Cyborg. A
She
bad, bad
seems
night.
happy, but I think
She's not the savviest person.
yeah, monetarily, it's a terrible night for her. I think she's probably enjoying it, at least in the moment. I get the feeling she's probably right now just real all smiles.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure because Rousey has been anything but gracious towards Chris Justino, aka Chris Cyborg, and their non-pre-fight talk. Cyborg is somebody who destroyed Gina Carano, the previous women's MMA superstar, and is too heavy to fight Rousey. She's slowly working her way down to 135 pounds, but her last fight, has she fought at 140 yet?
No, I think she hasn't yet. I can't even. Let's
Yeah,
see.
the last fight was at 145, and she's working down to 140, and so she's still a ways away from being able to fight at 135. And at this point, the big question is going to be: is Ronda Rousey
Yeah.
the UFC's women's bantamweight division, or is the torch going to be passed to Holly Holm? Now, I think Holly Holm, she's charismatic, she's nice looking, she's a really good fighter. She won a huge fight, but does she have the Rousey charisma? I don't think so.
Well, she just doesn't. She doesn't seem to have the interest in the media that Rousey does. Like, Rousey wants to be in front of the cameras, doing interviews, talking about her book, writing a book for that matter. Doing movies. She wants to be out there. She wants the UFC to promote her. Holm, very, I think even directly has just kind of been like, I don't really like that. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do interviews. I don't want to talk to people. I just
I
want to
think
fight.
I think her opinion about that is going to change. I mean Rousey
It'll
is
have
somebody
to.
who Rousey's somebody who caught the popular interest, and gradually became this superstar, and over time became more and more comfortable with the media exposure and the interviews. I mean, 2 years ago, Rousey wasn't doing this kind of media and was a little bit more uncomfortable with it. But over time, she's become more and more comfortable. Maybe you're right. Maybe, I mean, Rousey's always had that it factor in a way that Holly Holm frankly hasn't. And nobody else in women's MMA has ever had except for Gina Carano. And so I'm very curious to see if this is going to be, is women's MMA just a fad that came with Ronda Rousey and is going to go with Ronda Rousey? I mean, MMA in toto, we've never reached the heights that we reached in the Brock Lesnar period. 2010 was still the peak of the sport. The sport's gone on. It's thrived. New stars have come along, but in a popularity sense, Brock Lesnar was at peak, and he brought a lot of fans in, and when he left, he took a lot of fans away. I'm very curious to know if you're one of those fans that, I mean, we got 340 viewers right now. That's way more than we usually have on this show. Tell us, are you going to stick around if Ronda Rousey fades out of MMA? Are you still interested? I'd love to know. I mean, there's only one way to find out. And I think the fact that Holly Holm won this so convincingly, and it's just a classic fight story. I mean, it was a classic Matador versus a Bull match. Holm played it perfectly. She showed a lot of poise. She showed a lot of skill. She showed a lot of poise at the weigh-ins yesterday when Rousey came charging in at her. Holm looked pretty seriously tough. That's when I started to think, holy shit, this might be an upset, because Holm looked very confident yesterday at the weigh-ins.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, she's all like, having a long history of being promoted in fights like this is something that a lot of MMA fighters in general don't have. I mean, most of them come from a combat sports background. They've been wrestlers, they've been kickboxers of some sort, they've been BJJ grapplers or whatever. But, Holmes one of the few, and even, even if her women's boxing career wasn't ever even on a tenth the stage that her MMA career has now been on, it was still something where they were, going through the production stages for her fights. Like,
yeah,
okay,
she was a headliner, and she was the main event. The events were much smaller, but yeah, she was a main event. She's been in the spotlight before, and she handled it well. Let's run through the rest of the card real quick. In the co-main event, women's strawweight champion Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who was the most heavily favored fighter on the card. Ronda Rousey was like a minus 7,500 favor, and God, I wish I had put some money down on that. But Jędrzejczyk was even bigger, like minus 13,000. I don't even remember what it was. Just an incredible number, 13,000, I think. And Valerie Letourneau didn't upset her, but she certainly surprised everybody by lasting 5 full rounds. Lost a unanimous decision, but took a round on 2 judges' cards, which I don't think anybody expected that either.
I think it was just one judge, but yeah, I don't.
Now there were 249-46 scores. So.
Oh yeah, you're right. 249-46 is, yeah. I mean, she did great. The big change there that we saw was that it took her a lot longer to fade in this fight than she has in the past. Like, she's always had a great counter boxing game, and that was, I figured that Jędrzejczyk would be able to switch stuff up enough early to kind of make that moot. But Jędrzejczyk really depended on, trying to outbox her a lot, and Letourneau came catching kicks and forcing a lot of Jędrzejczyk's kicking game out of her comfort zone. So it just, I think Letourneau did the absolute best job she could have. She was super well prepared. It's just that at some point, other than a left body kick, when all you're doing is boxing and trying to counter somebody who's coming at you with 20 different things, you're just not gonna win.
No, she had a limited arsenal to deal with. But when she took Jędrzejczyk down and put her, cradled her early on, she was looking very dominant. It wasn't until they stood back up and Jędrzejczyk caught her with that kick to the throat.
Mm-hmm.
That reminded me of Anderson Silva catching Dan Henderson with a kick to the throat in their title fight way back in 2007 or whatever it was. And after that, Letourneau was pretty diminished, but still, even then, it was a war of attrition where Jędrzejczyk just slowly wore down. The mouse under her eye got bigger and bigger. And, by the 5th round, it was clear it was Jędrzejczyk's fight, and she wasn't going to have to go to the knockout, and she didn't. Didn't really ever turn out the gas the full way, but didn't need to. Solid performance from Indicek, who is at this point clearly the most dominant woman in MMA at this point, and looking to have a long title run. I don't know. Let's look at the UFC rankings and see who's out there for Indicek.
I mean, Gadella.
Oh
Gadella.
yeah, obviously Gadella, but she's already beaten her as a split decision. I don't know. You think Gadella can beat her?
I mean, I think Gadella is the best athlete in that division, but
She's not the most skilled fighter, though.
no,
That's the
she's
thing.
not the most skilled fighter. So I think she's got a chance because she's so powerful and fast, and she's got a very stifling ground game and a very powerful shot. Um, but I kind of expect Jędrzejczyk to be better prepared for Gadelia the second time around.
I think so
And
too.
her counter wrestling's just so good. Like, Letourneau got her down just off catching kicks and forcing her down, but she didn't ever actually just like take her down off a shot. She didn't ever
No,
just pull her, hit or get her to the ground with any wrestling. And fighters who try to do that, it just seems to wear them out more than it hurts her. So I think if Gadelia tries to press her game, I think Jędrzejczyk is going to be better prepared for it than ever before.
yeah. Well, let's run through the rest of the card. Um, we'll start with the five pass card, which was one of the best parts of the card, actually. Ben Gwynn defeated Ryan Benoit first round submission. Really impressive performance from the South Dakotan.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I mean, when I kind of wrote him off as like a jack of all trades, master of none action fighter who would be a fun flyweight and win a few, lose a few, stick around in the promotion. But it looks like he's going to go on a run into the top 15. I don't know if he's ever going to be title contender material, but
That division's so shallow. I could
yeah.
see him getting into the top 10 easy, maybe top 5, and maybe
I
even
mean,
a title shot. He
as
looks
we've seen
smooth and a
I'm sorry.
complete package. I mean, he beat him up on the feet, took him down, and went through the whole pattern. Got him down, cracked him from the mount, took his back, got the submission. I mean, it's a perfect MMA performance. And so looking forward to seeing more of Ben Nguyen. And then welterweight James Muntazeri put on some taekwondo against Anton Zafir. I mean, spinning back kick to the liver, and then didn't even the back forearm from there. I mean, he didn't even spin all the way around to finish it with a straight punch. I mean, it was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, Muntasiri already kind of I have him lined up, especially after this fight, as welterweight Uriah Hall.
He's
Where,
a
like,
little. I trust him more than I trust Uriah Hall.
well, yeah, because you've seen a lot less of him so far.
It's
Like,
true. It's true.
he's just he is super athletic, and he has all this experience kicking, and he can hit all these great things and do all this stuff. But he's also the kind of guy who lost a split decision to Joe Ellenberger and who got taken down with ease by Zafir early in this fight and was not necessarily winning the round outside of hitting that big kick that finished it.
It's true. It's true. It's true. But he is fun to watch, and I love seeing the taekwondo stuff. But again, might be a low ceiling on the guy. And then things got less fun. Richard Walsh decision. Steve Kennedy unanimous. I think that's all we need to say about that one. Dan Kelly middleweight beat Steve Montgomery by unanimous decision in a fight that was even less fun than the one before it. And then the Fox Sports 1 card open with Danny Martinez. The Fox Sports 1 card was definitely the low point of the evening. I mean, it went a long time with a lot of ads, and the fights were not that fun. Danny Martinez, flyweight, beat Richie Vasulik by unanimous decision. Another tedious fight. But John Vellante, light heavyweight, demolished Anthony the Hippo Perosh. A sad day for Hippo fans.
Yeah, I mean, that fight was always going to go that way, barring a miracle. I mean, if a meteor fell out of the sky and hit Vellante, he might have lost. And Vellante is the kind of fighter that I would pick a meteor to fall out of the sky and hit him. He just seems
He does have that kind of luck. But I think you nailed it before the fight when you pointed out that Vellante, when he loses, it's late in the fight, and that Perosh,
he tends to get comfortable and have like an easy time. He's getting nice and cozy, and then he gets hit, getting lazy. And Perosh wasn't the guy who's going to take him like that.
Now, Perosh didn't have the chin to take that kind of barrage Vellante unleashes for long enough to get him tired. And Perosh does have a little bit of crack in his hands. I mean, we've seen him drop guys before, but not very often. He's primarily a grappler, and Volante's just too big and strong. I don't think that Volante's really going any place, but there you are.
Beating Perosh doesn't say it. Like, that's the
No.
thing. Is that Perosh is at the point he's gotten knocked out enough in the first round of his career that you can't look at like, oh, the guys who've knocked out Anthony Perosh in round one and be like, those guys are contenders. It's Ryan Jimmo, Sean O'Connell,
Yeah.
James Tahuna, Moise Rimbon, Jeff Monson. Like,
There you go. Yeah.
yeah.
So, but it was a fun fight to watch. And then welterweight Kyle Noak demolished Peter Sabata. Noak looked really good in that fight.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it was a great performance from Noak. He looked better than he has in a long time, and he looked like he had Sabota's number even leading up to that. Like,
Yeah.
Sabota wasn't able to get inside and complete any of his takedowns, and then Noak was out kicking him and eventually just hit him with.
That front kick to the gut was murderous.
It looked so fucking painful. Like,
Yeah.
that's one of those ones where you see it at home and you're just like, oh no.
Yeah.
I would rather get knocked out like Anthony Perosh than knocked out like Peter Sabota.
Oh yeah, much more. But I don't know where that takes us. But anyway, lightweight Jake Matthews ended the Fox Sports 1 card, beating Akbar Ariola with a second round TKO or post second round doctor stoppage from a cut. Rogan was saying that cut was not going to get stopped in the U.S., but first event in Melbourne, the doctor was a little squeamish and stopped the fight. I think, Ariola lit him up in the first round, and then Matthews dominated the second. Anything could have happened in the third.
Yeah, I think kind of I think Ariola beating Matthews in the first round was kind of like that moment for him. It was like, wait a minute, what the hell am I doing?
This isn't supposed to happen.
Like, he had Ariola so outmatched in this fight that, like, it was like, oh yeah, I need to actually beat this guy, and then he just turned around and started beating him to a pulp.
Yeah.
It wasn't this like back and forth thing of like, oh, it's close and they're really going after it. It was just like Matthews fought the dumbest fight possible, realized he actually had to do something to win, and then it was just all downhill.
It was pretty one-sided. So now coming to the pay-per-view, started with an absolute dog. Jared Rosholt held Stefan Struve down for 2 rounds. Everybody agrees he lost the third round, but Struve wasn't able to do enough in the third to get the finish that he needed. So that was a stinker. Just heavyweight action at its worst. Rosholt gets a decision. I don't think it means anything or goes anywhere. Then middleweight Robert Whittaker decisioned Uriah Hall in a pretty good fight. Whittaker came on aggressive, but Hall had his moments, and Whittaker rode him out and came back and dominated towards the end of the fight for the decision. I have no problem with.
Yeah, I really liked that fight a lot. It was a good one. I mean, the thing is that I think Hall very slowly but surely is becoming a solid top 15 fighter. Like, the guy we saw in this fight had a lot of really dangerous moments where he hurt Whittaker pretty badly.
Yeah. He busted him up and blooded him repeatedly.
But he's never going to not be Uriah Hall. And Uriah Hall is, like, he's never going to consistently win top tier fights like this. Whittaker knows how to win.
Yeah, Hall doesn't bring the aggression that you need at the highest levels of the division, and Whittaker does. And Whittaker, I don't think has the gifts that Hall does, but he's got something in his mentality that makes him a much more dangerous fighter. So it's onward and upward for Robert Whittaker, and it's probably going to be Hall's going to stay at this level. I think win one, lose one, win one, lose one is the pattern I see for Hall in the future.
Very much. He's so dependent on hitting that big flashy strike. If it doesn't come, he's not winning the fight, and it'll come. I mean, we're seeing it happen often enough now that he's going to keep winning. It's just never going to be consistent. It's just insane to think that he's a good enough athlete, an amazing enough athlete, that even having a terrible process, just to throw it out there because I know I'll take shit for it, even having a terrible process as a fighter, he's still like a top 15 dude. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. He's a gifted athlete, and maybe he'll turn it around. You never know. And that brings us to heavyweight. Mark Hunt demolished Antonio Bigfoot Silva first round, minute 19. Uh, Vicious knockout. Silva just doesn't have a chin anymore. I mean, this is the definition of a shot fighter. This was a guy who came into MMA as like a human tree trunk, sort of an immovable object, destroyed Fedor Emelianenko. That's probably always going to be his career high point, the second guy to ever beat Fedor, and fought Mark Hunt to an incredibly brutal draw in 2013. Just one of the most vicious fights you'll ever see. But tonight, he's just not that guy anymore. He's no longer on testosterone replacement therapy, and frankly, hasn't ever looked the same since that Hunt fight. I think the trauma he took in that fight took his chin away.
Yeah, I mean, he's gotten knocked out in the first round before, but before it was always like he would get caught in a firefight and hit with a barrage of strikes. It was sort of like, or he would just get really cracked on the chin with something and then get a bunch of follow-up punches. But this was just like the first hard shot Mark Hunt landed. It was just like down on the ground.
Yeah, crumpled him. I really hope Bigfoot retires. He seems like a nice guy, and he's taken a lot of punishment and put on a lot of good shows for the fans.
I mean, if his manager isn't like sitting him down and being like, "Dude, you can't do this anymore," then I'm not going to be the one to tell him that because I'm a fan, and what do I know? Maybe this is the only way he has making money. Maybe he's bankrupt right now and he's got to fight. But I hope somebody in his camp and in his corner is like, man, you got to figure something else out because you can't fight heavyweight like this. You can't be the guy who gets knocked out by the first punch he gets hit by.
Yeah. Now, Mark Hunt admittedly is one of the hardest punchers in the world. I mean,
but Frank Mir's not.
No, it's true. It's true. And Silva's shot. But let's get back to Holly Holm and Ronda Rousey now. Holly Holm's the champion. Ronda Rousey is not. This is amazing. This is one of the biggest nights in MMA history. Definitely the biggest night in women's MMA history in front of, was it a sellout crowd at the stadium?
I have no idea.
I don't know if it was a sellout, but they packed a stadium in Melbourne, Australia. Now, there's been pent-up demand because Melbourne has had a really strange ban on cage fighting. They've allowed mixed martial arts, but only in a ring. It took the UFC a long time to get that overturned. Melbourne is the hotbed of MMA fandom in Australia, so they've done shows in Sydney before and other places around Australia. This is the first time they've been to Melbourne. They blew the doors off with a two-title fight and Ronda Rousey, their biggest star, and they got to see history in the making. I mean, Rousey, she's demolished everybody she's fought up to this point, and Holly Holm had her number, just absolutely had her number.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, I still really don't know how to process it. Like, I don't know what the fallout's going to be. I don't know what this is going to look like. I don't know how the UFC is going to promote Holm. I feel reasonably secure betting that Ronda Rousey will still be the major A side in the rematch.
Yeah, I think Rousey's going to be
the attention.
I mean, Rousey's the one that's done Ellen. Rousey's the one with the best-selling autobiography. Rousey's the one that won the ESPY awards. Rousey's the one that's had the feud with Floyd Mayweather. So she's still going to be, the story in the rematch. But Holm she won in utterly dominating fashion. Yep. She's clearly a very skilled athlete. She's a very attractive woman. She's a polished person on the public stage. She doesn't have the edge Rousey does as a personality. I mean, she's really mild-mannered and sweet, And so I don't know how people are going to react to that. She's definitely not going to be talking about, bitches with sand in their kitties or whatever that Rousey was talking about. So,
yeah.
But, so we'll see if the American public can deal with a champion that isn't vulgar and crude,
Well, yeah. I just don't think that Holm's going to be. I think Holm will, she'll be reasonably popular in that same way that like Miesha Tate is reasonably popular.
Miesha Tate's quite popular. I mean, she's got a million Facebook friends, and
yeah, she's popular in like that way of a good MMA fighter is that like has a reasonable public presence can be popular.
Yeah, but Ronda Rousey's a superstar.
Yeah,
I mean, my mother-in-law knew who Ronda Rousey was, and she doesn't. She stays far away from combat sports. So, a big night in MMA might be the end of the road for, if things return to the mean, women's MMA might not be headlining too many cards in the future. I mean,
Yeah.
that's when Gina Carano lost to Chris Cyborg, the next couple of years until Ronda Rousey emerged, I mean, women's MMA was very unpopular, and it's so far in the history of women's MMA is essentially Gina Carano, Ronda Rousey, and that's it. So we'll see if Holly Holm can carve out a new era. If Ronda Rousey can come back, make some adjustments, and win a second fight. I don't think there's anything. I think Rousey has the physical skills to beat Holly Holm. I think she's got the martial arts ability with her judo and submission ability to beat Holly Holm. Can she put that together in a package, the mental package, and a strategy, a game plan to use her tools to beat Holly Holm? I don't know. And I think your point about her changing camps is an excellent one. I mean, her coach, Edmund Taverdian, the guy is a disaster. He's been in a vicious public feud with Ronda's mom. He filed for bankruptcy recently, in which he admitted he hasn't paid taxes in years. He claims he made zero money for the past couple of years while he was acting as Ronda Rousey's manager, which is just completely implausible. So the guy's definitely got some serious financial issues, and some personal issues, personality issues. To be, not that Ronda Rousey's mom is a saint or the easiest person to get along with, but I mean, they had a pretty remarkably bitter feud in public. So,
well, the important part is there's not a lot of evidence he's a good coach.
It's true. He's not coached anybody else to. Yeah. I mean, yeah, good coaches do it over and over again. And then, occasionally you have somebody like John Hackelman, who was Chuck Liddell's coach for a long time and had a couple of good fighters, but never again anybody that was.
He had like Glover Teixeira, and
he got Glover Teixeira to a title shot, but couldn't get him over the hump. But never anybody else.
But
and
it's still a reasonably successful gym that has like produced reasonably decent level MMA fighters.
Yeah, Taverdian's not even close to that.
Yeah, Glendale has nobody else that is coming out of that camp and is on anyone's radar.
Yeah. It's and it's sort of a spin-off camp. I can't remember the dude's name, but there's a whole circle of judokas around Jean LaBelle and Caro Parisian and Parisian's cousin Manny Gamburian, and they had a coach that I can't remember that was the bigger coach in that circle. And Taverdian was kind of a satellite of that, and really Ronda Rousey got in with him, and that's been his ticket to the big time. And it might be that he's just not the man, but so we'll see. A lot to find out about. We will see what happens. So give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube. Subscribe to MMA Nation on iTunes if you don't want to look at us, but you want to hear us talk. Read us at bloodyelbow.com. Follow us on Twitter at KidNate, at TheZaneSimon. And that's our show. So adios, MMA aficionados. Thanks, Zane. We'll see you next time, and we'll be back for Knuckle Up tomorrow, yada, yada. But the king is dead. Long live the king. All right, adios.